110 enough times at this point in my life. You know, in the beginning I used to come up with all kinds of inventive 4-letter words when I would get bit by 110. Now I'm at the point where you know, I'm annoyed by it. I don't want it to happen, but it's kind of like, wow, you're getting far too comfortable with being electrocuted. So you need to knock that off. Okay, so microchannel is going to be used mostly in 13 all the way through 20 SEER air conditioning applications. It's also going to show up in heat pumps. We currently have a 14 SEER microchannel through and through in terms of outdoor microchannel. On the heat pump side, as far as that coil, paired up to a microchannel coil inside, and we're driving 14 SEER numbers off of that. A lot of the package equipment, you're going to see more additional evaporator and condenser coils that are made out of microchannel. One of the key things that we like to point out to you guys is that we do not want you to think that this technology, this manufacturing process, this material, any of it, we don't want you to think that that is somehow now going to radically change how you go about your daily installation practice of doing HVAC systems. It's not like you're suddenly going to have to come up with a bunch of different radical tools. It's not like it's suddenly going to start costing you twice the amount of time that you would typically expect to bid for a job, so on and so forth. Where you're going to want to slow down and take your time is when you are fine-tuning your charge. That's where you're going to want to slow down and take your time and setting up your airflows. But in terms of, you know, in terms of setting the condenser, getting your electrical, getting your welds done, all that kind of good stuff, you're looking at the common comfortable practices that you've always used up to this point. Yes?
So we're just now developing the 14 SEER heat pumps with the microchannel. What about 16 SEER and above? How long until those go to microchannel? Or do you guys have an idea?
So currently right now, obviously we are pushing the we're trying to push the numbers even higher. I would probably say at this point I would not expect to see a 16 SEER achievement before the end of 2015. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens sometime soon in 2016. You'd be surprised how much time it takes once you finally actually have the product finished, how long it actually takes to go through the underwriter's process, the AHRI process, if you will. I would expect to see something by the end of 2015, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see it happen shortly thereafter going into 2016. Pushing up even past 16 SEER, that's a great question. Obviously we have things like the BG, the inverter line. We have the IQ systems also as well. I think that's going to be one of those things where the market is also going to kind of demand how fast that comes down the river, if you will. Obviously we want to manufacture what we know we can sell, you know, if that makes any sense. So as the demand for higher and higher SEER, as those systems sell, obviously that's going to spur everybody at our company from engineering and design all the way down to get that product to market as quickly as possible and have it done in a manner where it's just not something where we just throw it out there. I'll give you a great example of that. When the IQ drive system came out, one of the things that I was asked an awful lot is, why don't you have this available in a 5-ton? Because you know, I have customers where I've got a lot of 5-ton application, and one of the answers that I would give them is, we aren't bringing a 5-ton in that product to market currently because we can't get it to perform the way that we want it to. We don't want to just come up with a 5-ton that we put to market and suddenly it's like, you are achieving these great SEER, EER numbers, HSPF, whatever the case may be, you're achieving these great numbers all the way up to 5-ton, and then at 5-ton it seems like it kind of falls off of a cliff, if you will. So anything beyond 16 SEER, chances are it's going to be one of those things where a market analysis in terms of the demand for that's going to really kind of spur how hard we step on the gas for something like that. just gotta make sure or I'll just keep talking, and all of a sudden it's gonna be like 10 o'clock, and you guys are gonna be like, dude, I needed a cup of coffee 30 minutes ago. So the evaporator coils, C7s and Replicoil M's, those will all be microchannel. They obviously are more robust, so we do have a better corrosion resistance on the material. Again, less pressure drop, less weight. The efficiency of these coils in terms of how they load and unload, they do a very nice job in terms of what you may be looking to do to set up a dehumidification profile on a system. Again, we're always going to recommend that you use something fairly safe and neutral in terms of pH to clean them, but by the same token, if somebody inadvertently gets, like some foaminator or something like that on one of those coils, I don't want you to hit the panic buttons and suddenly think that, now the thing's going to sit there and decompose right in front of your eyes and suddenly start leaking, if you will. And 2012 is when we began to do the B6 series. Whoop. Didn't mean to go that far. The pre-installation checklist is stuff that you've already been doing for years and years up to this point. And what we're just trying to reinforce are those sound field practices that you've already been using up to this point. Don't think that this material is suddenly going to somehow now completely change or compromise what you have comfortably already known how to do for years at this point in your life. We get asked a lot about things like line set sizing. Okay, line set sizing is fairly straightforward. There really isn't an awful lot of mystery there. You can certainly use this on an existing line set, so long as you know that it's properly sized for the application that you want to do, and that it's serviceable, it's not damaged, and that it's clean. If you flush it, and you know that size-wise you're going to be okay, that the actual physical construction of that existing line set is going to be useful to you, I'll give you a great example. We will be asked from time to time, like let's say when a compressor dies, we will be asked, what do you think caused this compressor to die? And one of the first questions that I have to kind of answer his question with a question. And that is typically, what does the layout of the piping on your line set look like? Are you pumping 25 feet up to an evaporator? And if so, how does it, like if it's up in an attic, how does it enter into that attic? Is that line set just entering up into the attic and going straight over to that unit? Do we have an inverted vapor line trap? If not, most likely what probably caused the premature death of a compressor is that over the years, that 410A has been scrubbing oil out of the sump of that compressor. It's been pumping up to the evaporator where, the majority of it finally sits. It doesn't come back to the sump in the off cycle, and now you deprive the compressor of enough lubrication that's what's killed the thing. And if you aren't aware of that ahead of time, you might replace a compressor, or you might replace an entire condenser, and unfortunately all you've really done is just lit the fuse. All that you've done is just reset the clock. And it won't be anything more than a matter of time before now that one's starting to see the effects as well. I know this for a fact. There is nothing more difficult, there is nothing more kind of deflating than having to come in on somebody else's job. When you didn't do the install, when you kind of get that impression, when you show up like, I have a sneaking suspicion we may have been the third or the fourth company contacted on this situation, that's that moment right then and there where you have to basically say, if this is going to be mine, if this is going to be my system that I have to inherit, I'm not going to start at the top, I'm going to start at the base of that pyramid. I'm going to start with some of the fundamentals, because if they've been having this, if they've been having this frequency of issues with this thing, and they're that frustrated, I'm not going to start at the top and try to work my way backwards through it. I'm going to start with the fundamentals. I'm going to look at the layout on the piping for the line set, things like that. Okay, let's take a quick 10-minute break. It looks like it's about 5 minutes till. Let's take 10.